Greetings, Substack. I'm going to make a little opinion piece video here for you guys. First, I just want to do a little, I'm going to try to make it a non-rant about the poor quality of this video. This video is horrible resolution quality because I'm using the Windows app to record it. This is because every single app that I've been using, some of them for years, is all of a sudden way shittier than it used to be. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. I have a Logitech camera. It's a good webcam. It came with the program. They've updated the program, and now the program is literally unusable. I was able to use it once, and now there's some encoder missing. Google doesn't know how to find the encoder, and they say don't use the program because it's no longer supported. So maybe there's an even newer Logitech program that I need to download, but this is the one I just downloaded last week. So it's like, I don't get these tech issues. I apologize for the low resolution. I apologize as well the for the reverse image. That's the other thing. Why does Windows reverse the fucking image? Why do they do that? I don't get it. But I'm long story short, I'm working on the quality issues with my tech slowly but surely. And at this point, I mean, this is a good camera. Actually, it doesn't look like much, but it actually does, 1080p. It gives a good resolution when the software works. When the software works. But the software is just not working. And StreamYard doesn't work anymore. And so StreamYard is about to get canceled because I'm paying for basically nothing because the quality is always horrible. Like the last video, I had the one video where I was the Audre Lorde video where we had those tech issues. That was all StreamYard. And then they unveiled this new feature through StreamYard of local recording. So all the recording supposed to just happen within my local device and then get uploaded. And even that failed. And maybe that was a Google Chrome issue. I don't know because StreamYard says they're most compatible with Google Chrome, so I always use Google Chrome. But Google Chrome, I don't know. I mean, people know that Google's kind of like not always doing the right things, right? So like that could be a component of it. I'm not prone to paranoia, but I'm a fucking millennial. Okay, I know how to internet. I know how to tech. Like, I don't think this shit is me. I really don't. If I did, I'd tell you. But I mean, I even won computer programming competitions in high school. So it's like, nah, bro, I know how to tech. Like this shitty. What's happening, in my opinion, is that all corporate tech, like all big tech, it just is just getting shittier. It's just getting shittier for no reason, and I have no clue why. Like why, and more convoluted and more complex. Like YouTube is just notorious for this. I mean, I don't even mess with YouTube anymore because I don't like the censorship. I don't dig all that. But what I do, I say that, and then I'm probably going to actually post this to YouTube to add to my Substack. But in a real like serious sense, I don't consider YouTube to be anything other than convenience. Like I'm not attached to YouTube. If YouTube ever deplatforms anything that I upload for my Substack for the Hodgepodge will fully go over to Rumble, and we may go to Rumble as a backup anyway. Um, but YouTube, just they love to just redo everything all the time. It's like people are like justifying their salaries or something. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I have this cushy job in a big tech company, and rather than leave things that are functioning perfectly well the hell alone, so that they can continue to function perfectly well, I'm just gonna fuck shit up just to give myself more work to do next year as I unfuck it. I mean, it really feels this. It really just feels this way. And this Logitech shit, it's just I don't get it. Like it literally wouldn't let me record. It said it couldn't find the encoder. The encoder was working a few days ago. I mean, I don't see, I don't get it. I don't, but I'm done with this tech shit. Anyway, the way I'm working on it is this is my Windows computer. I also have a Linux computer with Ubuntu. And so my Linux computer with Ubuntu, I've been switching over gradually because when you're someone like me who's a dissident activist, Windows treats you differently, in my opinion. So the average citizen, to my knowledge, doesn't get nightly updates like clockwork at 2:15 a.m. every single night, but I do. I get nightly updates. Why does my computer need to update every single night? My thinking is it's an upload, not an update. That's my thinking. I mean, who knows? I mean, as I tell people, I'm not so paranoid that I think everything is out to get me, but I'm not so naive to think that nothing's out to get me. You know what I mean? It's like some things just flat out don't make sense about the way tech has moved in the past 5 years. And I've always been a dissident. Um, I don't want to get too much into my past there, but it's sort of especially when I'm standing up for what I'm standing up for now. I think maybe I'm a bit more of a dissident than I used to be from certain people's perspective. Who knows? And certainly, tech, because a lot of what I'm fighting against is very heavily integrated with big tech. You know? And so, anyway, but that was all just a rant. So, is anyone else having tech issues? Millennials and younger, people who have tech literacy? Like, am I the only one? Like, let me know. I know I'm not the only one because I've talked to other activists from all over the place. But if you're a normal person who isn't a dissident activist, are you having weird issues with tech all the time lately? Like the past, like say 3 years? Like, just curious. Um, anyway, so what I wanted to hop on here today to talk about is this concept of a Donald Trump arrest, and I think I'm going to title the Substack um, post, probably the video as well. The arrest of Donald Trump is going to be the greatest show on earth because it really is, and and I want to just talk about what some things about it from a global patriot mission coaching perspective. So I probably will put this on that Rumble page as well as the YouTube page, because I think of it in terms of activists and what activists can get out of this and maybe what activists should get out of this, right? So just as a reminder to people who may have forgotten this, I have always been the type of an activist that is willing to work with the left and the right. Like I've been that way pretty much my entire life. And I self identify as a libertarian, and pragmatically speaking, I vote like an independent. And the reason I tend to vote like an independent is that the Libertarian Party has been occupied up until June of 2022, was occupied in its leadership ranks by a group of people who, I'm just going to say it, I think they're Republicans. I think they're rhinos. I don't think they were ever actually libertarians. Nick Sarwark went on Dave Smith's podcast. Dave Smith is one of the most high profile libertarian YouTubers. And he literally said, I mean, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he literally said that if the Libertarian Party were to run Adolf Hitler, you should still vote for Adolf Hitler because of solidarity. But that is the most anti libertarian thing that I've ever heard someone falsely claiming to be a libertarian ever say. That is the most anti libertarian thing because libertarians value personal freedom and freedom of thought above pretty much everything else. That's why we're libertarians. And so it's just like the fact that if you look at like I think that this Republican occupation of the leadership ranks of the Libertarian Party existed for about a decade, and during and it just ended like maybe even longer than a decade, but to my perception, let's say 2012 to 2022, they were doing crazy things like they would turn it into like a clown show. Like they were like setting up the libertarians to look like they were not serious so that they would never pose a threat, in my opinion, to the Republican Party. Like that's just how I see it. And so like they ran some candidates that were not libertarians. Okay, they were corporate Republicans, in my opinion. So I'm not going to name names. I don't want to piss people off. But some of these people just weren't libertarians. And then they ran Jo Jorgensen in 2020, and she had the political instinct. I think she was more of a libertarian than some of the other candidates, but she had the political instinct of a rotting potato, And I was just like, I can't take this bitch serious. X that. Okay. I can't take this person seriously. I just can't. Anyway. So, but that's why I tend to, I'm a libertarian who votes like an independent. And I always base everything. I tell people I base my opinions issue by issue, candidate by candidate, and that's how I'm always going to do it. I'm always going to say, and I'm always going to think in terms of historicity, like his historical location. And at this time, what does our country or state or community need, and who are the best people for the job? I almost always end up voting split ticket. I never always vote for just one party, because you vote in multiple elections, and then you have a different level of perception at the different arenas. At the local level, I end up knowing a lot of these people personally. So like that changes how you perceive and how you're going to vote for people. And then I also look at the relative health of the state of Virginia versus the Commonwealth of Virginia, I guess, versus the United States. In terms of like there may be at times where someone who's more of a fiscal conservative would be a more appropriate person at the state level, and in that very same cycle, someone who is more of a social liberal might be better to balance the country out at the national level, for example. So this is how I think, and I love being able to vote for third party candidates when they are clearly the best candidate, and when I don't fall into the trap of, oh, the stakes are too high to throw away your vote. Most of the time I don't fall into that trap, but I have fallen into that trap a couple times. But maybe it's not a trap. Maybe I'm just a strategist. But anyway, I sort of don't get into the left versus right thing. I am not someone who had Trump derangement syndrome. He said I was talking to a friend about this earlier. He said some things that upset me, especially in his 2016 campaign. I don't like that he called the Muslim ban a Muslim ban. Like I just don't like that. And I wasn't a fan of the transgender military ban, and um, and there are a few other things. I don't want to list it off because people will start to see me as too one sided if I go down if I rattle off the list. But um, but I wasn't a derangement syndrome person. And Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing, and I'm going to talk about that when I talk about this concept of Trump being arrested. So that's why I bring it up. But it's like I'm on the antisocial personality disorder spectrum. So it's a little bit easier for me to predict what these sociopaths and psychopaths who run our world are going to do than it is for the average person, because I think like them more than the average person does. But simultaneously, I am better able to not be triggered by damn near everything, because it's like that capacity to sort of detach. The biggest, well, yeah, that's too personal. I won't talk about all that right now. Maybe I will sometime, but it's not pertinent to the video. And this might just be a video of all tangents. I'm going to digress the heck out of this video, but yeah. So I don't know if it's possible to be Trump neutral. So I'm not going to pretend to be Trump neutral. I will say um, that the regime that we have now is actively trying to sabotage us. So Trump was someone who raised the emotional temperature of our country and really of the planet to levels that are not sustainable. And I'll be the first to admit it. But if you're talking Trump versus this Biden regime, it's like, well, to me, it's Trump. I mean, the economy was strong, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I really the reason why I'm so committed to third parties is I'm sick and tired of these shitty binary choices. I mean, that's really what it is. Like I wish that we didn't have to make such compromises ever. And I wish we never had to. I wish we would get out of this entrainment of false binary thinking. I mean, we're one of the last like so-called civilized, so-called Western societies that still has this two-party thing. I mean, most of these other political environments have evolved beyond a two-party system where they never had it to the same degree that we do, and it's very clear that it's all just control. If you look at the work of Jonathan Haidt, and how he researched the differences between the conservative mindset versus the liberal mindset, I think he's spot on. And I think that the oppressor class has known that for hundreds of years. I think they've known that, humanity naturally falls into some of these certain categories, and that you can stimulate one direction, you can stimulate one direction. And I've always seen it as they divide, they give each side enough truth to keep them on the hook, and then they give each side enough lies to never be to keep them in a mental cage to where they can't become effective organizers against the real power structure. That's how I see it. I think both sides have their truths, both sides have their lies. Um, so it's really disturbing to me to see that the neo-fascist project has been so successful in so many ways. And what the neo-fascist project is, to my mind, is it was always an escalation of technique, and by that I mean that it was an escalation of psychological control and psychological manipulation. So it's basically um, weaponized, systematized, industrialized, technocratic, narcissistic abuse. That's really what neo-fascism boils down to. And neo-fascism has been tailored, technocracy allows a greater degree of tailoring with the often with the use of AI as well. Um, that those narcissistic abusive tactics. Okay, so you saw that used in the 2016 election. They talked about Cambridge Analytica and how they were micro targeting messaging strategies in service to the Trump campaign. Okay, those micro targeting strategies are being used all across the board now, and they possibly probably have been used for longer than we've been aware that they've been being used, in my opinion. So here we are in neo-fascism. And now we have this moment where uh, Donald Trump is teasing that he's going to get arrested. And I think it's more probable than not that he will be arrested. It may not be on today, because I'm going to post this on, this is actually Monday evening, but I'll post this Tuesday morning. Um, he teased that he was going to get arrested today, and then I think some of his people walked it back a bit, and then the media kind of took it, and people pontificated upon it in the media sphere. What does it mean for Trump to get arrested? So I want to unpack a little bit of some of the structure of neo-fascism, and I'm going to do these in longer think pieces, because some people want me to be writing some of these longer things. My Gazette audience was used to, here in Halifax County, was used to be writing longer features focused on like people. My longer pieces for the Substack for Sean Barker's Hodgepodge are going to be more like think pieces that sort of help us unpack what's happening to us. And that's really kind of what that's more so about. But when you talk about targeted, weaponized, narcissistic abuse, right? You need different tools for different types of mindsets. And so what's happening now with this Trump arrest, this culmination, I I call it well, this is the orgasm of the bloodless blue balls that was directed against the left. Okay, so like I said, these techniques are, and bloodless blue balls is a term that I've coined. Okay, I came up with that. So if you live in a male body, as I do, then you're well acquainted with what blue and a functional male body where your reproductive organs function. Okay, and cisgender male body. Let me add that in. Okay, so many things to think about now when we talk about gender. Um, but when you live in the body I live in, okay, you know what blue balls is, okay? You're revved up, you're ready to go, you're ready to put the pole in the hole, okay? But for whatever reason, the hole closes, or there's no option to put the pole in the hole. And so your balls ache because they were expecting to relieve themselves, right? And so we call that blue balls. All right. So there's your little lesson. I guess, do women know about blue balls? I don't know. I guess some do, some don't. And bloodless blue balls was a technique that was used against men in particular and masculinized women. And so what that is the way it expressed itself on the left was the walls are closing in on Donald Trump. The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. The walls are closing in. They told y'all folks from 2015 onward that Donald Trump is going to get arrested, right? And now we're getting into that culmination point where Donald Trump will probably be arrested. And the blood blue balls on the right was more about lock her up for Hillary Clinton. And then there's the QAnon element where they talked about the satanic pedophile rings, and all these people were going to get arrested and tried in military tribunals and executed at Guantanamo, right? So they left everybody on the hook. They did it to all sides, to everybody who was choosing to engage in that binary way of being, where you're like, okay, I'm going to be this side or this side. I'm going to be team blue today. I'm going to be team red today. So whatever side you were on, they kept telling you your the media people who were directed and targeted at you, the operatives, were telling you this is going to happen. You are going to get your vicarious revenge. We're going to give it to you. We're going to give it to you. We're going to give it to you. And then neither side ever got it, you know. And neo-fascism is not over. So there still may be, now that they're doing the Donald Trump arrest, there still may be a back into the bloodless blue balls for the right side as well. Um, we just don't have a way of knowing that as of yet. But it's sort of like um, this is what they are still teasing people with, and it does come off as kind of desperate. You know, I think that everybody can plainly see the incompetence of this regime. I think everyone can plainly see that. I mean, the only declared candidate on the Democrat side now that I'm aware of is Marianne Williamson, and I am not someone who is reflexively dismissive of Marianne Williamson, but I'd be lying if I said that I was especially impressed by her, you know, or that I especially trust her, you know. I think that she has, I think that she expands the conversation in ways that appeal to me. I will say that she does like to talk about compassion and empathy. I appreciate that, but I don't know. There's just something about her. I get the heebie-jeebies, you know. So there's something off about her. So, and then Biden hasn't declared, but everyone pretty much expects that he will, and most Democrats and don't want him to be the candidate. I mean, that's an interesting dynamic that we're going to have this situation where your party doesn't want the incumbent president to be the next candidate, and I don't think people want Kamala to run. You know, she's deeply unpopular and almost impossible to like. I mean, her personality just sucks. You know, like, and her speeches suck. She comes off as an idiot every time she speaks, and and it's kind of like she has no sense of cadence. She has no sense of delivery. You know, she's not a gifted politician. That's why she was when Biden picked her up off the scrap heap. You know, she was polling at less than 1%. You know, so it's like she's a deeply unpopular person. So I think their best bet is going to be Michelle Obama if Michelle Obama is willing to run. And we don't, there are signals that she may be. She's starting to, remind America that the Obama administration was scandal free because the media were all in on the take and they were keeping him scandal free. Side note. Um, so like I think she's their best bet, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, we'll we don't know um, which way that bloodlust blue balls dynamic is going to go. And I do want to give a little side note here about the analog that was done for the females and the feminized males and sort of like the queer cluster, whatever you want to call that demo. And what was done to that side was just gaslighting. And it was gaslighting happening on all sides, and so it was just getting people revved up in that way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later when I do sort of like my think pieces on the anatomy of neo-fascism. But back to bloodlust blue balls. So, okay, this is why Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. Because as someone who has worked in mental health for more than a decade, okay, one of the surest signs that someone is symptomatic is self sabotage. Okay, self sabotage. And here we are today. You have a certain faction of the left that is so committed to their bloodlust blue balls. They want to see Trump get gotten that they will settle for what is on the table now. Okay, you want to get Trump? I think that the clearest way to do it is the case that's happening now. Brooke something. What's her last name? I can't remember. She's the one that's suing Pfizer and over the vaccines. And what has come forth in that case is that despite the fact that the documents that the Trump administration prepared for Pfizer to produce the COVID vaccines, which have turned out to be disastrously deadly, disastrously dangerous. Um, and look at Latipo's report and then Ed Dowd's reports about to come back. Look at the CDC VAERS. I mean, people are just choosing to ignore this, but the data's right there to be seen. Look at it, even if you search in the NIH databases now, it is very easy to find white papers on COVID vaccine injuries. Whereas, when they were starting, you had to go around that database to find those white papers. White papers everywhere now. You just have to just look at you have to trust that you have to read the science to trust the science. You have to know what the science is actually saying if you're going to science. Trust the science does not mean trust the clown that they put on CNN. I don't. I have so many frustrations when it comes to these things. More tangents, but I digress. I digressed again. So, um, so you guys are so attached that demographic, and I think a lot of people are waking up out of that demographic. So I don't want to overplay it like it's a bigger percentage of the left than it is, because it isn't a huge percentage of the left, but it's a highly vocal percentage of the left, and it includes the left's corporate media apparatus. And so, of course, they've got a bigger megaphone than a lot of people. Do. But it's a very real demographic of people who still want to see Donald Trump arrested. Okay, this is pure self sabotage, especially since this is related to that Stormy Daniels nonsense. I mean, who cares? Yeah, okay, a rich dude fucked a prostitute. Who cares? Like, what's the point of becoming rich and powerful if you're not going to fuck prostitutes? I'm sorry, but I mean, like, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I mean, like, do we really honestly care about that in a political sense? And then, in addition to that, Trump's right when he's saying, okay, this is a misdemeanor that they're using a novel legal theory in order to try to inflate into a felony, supposedly. And then it's also, if you go back to the original misdemeanor, there's a statute of limitations that's already well passed. And Trump maintains his innocence. Somebody paid her off. I've heard a very interesting novel theory about what's going on there, where it may have actually been Michael Cohen, his former attorney, I guess paid Stormy Daniels for sex, and then that by proxy would have come on Trump politically, and so that's how the money got from Trump to Cohen to Daniels. So um, I don't want to do a deep dive on Stormy Daniels. I really don't. But if I have to find the details, then I will. If it becomes something that is pertinent to um, covering the 2024 election, which of course I intend to do, and I'm already doing. This is part of that, I would say. Um, so I really don't want to know the dirty details there. Maybe stuff will come out, maybe it won't. But I mean, this is just a fluffed up nothing charge. Like I said a moment ago, you can go for the vaccine shit. I mean, if you want to get Trump, go for the vaccine shit. People have died. You know, but they're not going to do that, of course, because there's a hair's breadth of moral difference between Trump and Biden, and that Trump said no mandate, Biden said mandate. But allowing these things to roll out or pushing these things out is bad enough. I want both administrations criminally investigated for it. I mean, there's just no excuse for why that's not already happening. Um, and let the truth be what it is. I mean, if one side comes out to be more innocent than the other, I'll say it. And if they both come out to be equally guilty, then I'll say it. I mean, like let's have the investigation actually come through for both sides. But they're doing this fluffed up charge, and so they just want the photo op. They just want the frog walk. They just want the image, the distraction. They want the distraction from what is being uncovered about the Biden family's foreign dealings, and they want to cover up the distraction from the Fauci hearings and the very likely scenario that we're going to get the Twitter dump of the Fauci files fairly soon. And that'll probably be coordinated and be happening in tandem with these congressional hearings. And so, and they always do things maximum climax, maximum emotional impact, because that's part of neo-fascism as well. So when you're self-sabotaging, then you have to acknowledge that there is a mental illness component to this. You got to step back from that Trump derangement syndrome. If you, Elon Musk has said it, many other people have said it as well. If you all arrest Donald Trump, these people in New York, it's going to be huge. And I do think that that solidifies Trump for a 2024 landslide victory. And it's going to be the ultimate in self sabotage because if Trump gets arrested, the first ever president or ex president, to ever be arrested, okay, my mind is blown by just the thoughts of, okay, what happens with the Secret Service? So does he still have Secret Service guard 24/7 while he's in jail? but, but these are just the things I think about, okay? But um, okay, this is why it's going to solidify his victory because Americans are at a point, they want their gas prices cheaper, they want their food prices cheaper, they want more money in their pockets. Okay, everybody knows that Donald Trump, for whatever else he can deliver that is negative, he can put more money in your pocket. Bruh, he can put more money in your pocket. It is what it is. And so there's already a lot more people who have sort of been disillusioned, and I know these are people in my life. These are people I know who are Biden supporters who just won't ever be a Biden supporter again and have become deeply skeptical of the Democrats. Keep in mind, the Democrats don't just steal elections from Republicans. The Democrats steal elections from their own left wing. Hillary Clinton stole the nomination for Bernie before she attempted to steal the election from Trump. I mean, it just is what it is. But with all my digressions. But the most interesting candidate now to challenge Trump is Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay, he's a millennial. He's running as a Republican. He's South Asian, and he's brilliant. And he speaks very well. And he is one of the most interesting thinkers. I'm really deeply hoping that the libertarians run Jacob Hornberger or someone very like Jacob Hornberger in 2022 so that I can get fully behind a libertarian candidate. I feel that I deserve that experience and I'm jonesing for it. And like I said, the libertarians, the actual real libertarians, just took our party back in June of 2022. So like we haven't even had our own control of our own party for an entire year yet. So I would like to be able to support a real libertarian in 2024 and endorse a real libertarian in 2024. But of the declared candidates on any party as of now, to me, by far, the most interesting of those candidates is Vivek Ramaswamy. And I think on the Substack post, I will click a link to the interview that he did with Glenn Greenwald on his Rumble podcast, which is called System Update. I'll click the link so that you can sort of get to know Vivek Ramaswamy. But he wrote a book on wokeism. I forgot what he called it. Leftist cultural Marxism in the way that it's become very pathological in recent times. But as it was the theme of the book. And so, his ideas are just fresh, and he's fresh, and he's got a really good line to use against Trump. Okay. And the really good line that he has to use against Trump is, you only get to be an outsider once. Okay. Talk about a boom. That's a fucking boom, right? You only get to be an outsider once. And Trump's, as much as he was the drain the swamp person, look at how swampy his administration was. Look at John Bolton. Sorry, I'm gonna stop. I don't want to piss people off. Let me not name too many names, okay? But it's kind of like you only get to be you only get to be an outsider once, dude. Listen to me, Mr. New York DA. If you arrest Trump as the first ever ex-president to ever be arrested frog walked, psyop, media op, you turn him back into an outsider, and you take that line away from Vivek Ramaswamy. Because in a debate scenario, Trump can say, "Would they have arrested me if I was an insider?" I mean, come on, please think about this. Think about this. You're gonna guarantee a Trump victory if you do this. Um, and then and I just as someone who has those fresh ideas, and the fact that he's a millennial, I of course really appreciate that he's a millennial. I'm tired of boomer rule. I'm really tired of baby boomer rule. They haven't done very well by us. They have not done well by the country. I wish that we had I wish that Gen X was not like collectively a dropout generation to where the best people they can give us are like Kamala Harris and maybe Andrew Yang, Gavin Newsom. Ugh. Oh God, ew, he looks like a weasel these days. Um, I wish Gen X were not such a checkout generation. We don't care. We're too cool to care type of generation. But that's who they are. So it's gonna have to go to millennials, because millennials care too much. I mean, the millennials do the most. We're like boomers, but boomers who had social media. And so, um, yeah. So I just him being a millennial. It's like, and him representing sort of like him representing a new face for America without emphasizing his color and his exotic sounding name. To some people, it's an exotic sounding name. Him being that person without pimping that, and in contrast to Obama, another boomer. Him being that without pimping that is fresh. It's interesting. So you're taking that line away from Vivek. And I think if you want to really politically neutralize Donald Trump, if you want to get rid of Trump, um, your best chance is through the Republican primary, not through the general election. Because who's going to vote for a Democrat in 2024? I mean, it's just you would have to come up with something really sort of like killer, and maybe Michelle Obama's it, but no matter what, we all know, even if her rhetoric is different, she's still a neoliberal. No one wants to go back to neoliberalism. We don't want to rewind that back from neo-fascism back to neoliberalism because neoliberalism sucked too, you know. And we want a new vision. We want a new vision for what we can do here in America. So anyway, that's one way in which you would self-sabotage. The other way in which you would self-sabotage is you would set Trump up for victory, and then you would also create a precedent that ex-presidents can now be arrested because an ex-president was arrested. So, the QAnon types, the right wing dissidents, the people who had bloodlust blue balls on the right, because they saw the left get their bloodlust blue balls out of satiated, are going to say, "We demand that our bloodlust blue balls get satiated," and then you're gonna, I mean, you increase the probability that you will see frog walks and arrests of people like the Clintons, the Bushes, and the Obamas. Um, it would be great in a general sense to see powerful people be held accountable for their criminality. Okay, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be um, you set up the potential for them to do it in the least progressive way possible, and in the most political showmanship type of way possible, and in the least substantive way possible, right? So if you just sort of do a highly dramatized arrest of a few famous people where you satisfy both sides, really, that starts with Trump on the left, it migrates over to the others from the right, there are still hundreds of thousands of criminals who participated in all this who get away. So they're still out there doing it. I mean, it's like it's superficialized, and it's like if the neo-fascist pageant is going to crescendo into the satiation of the bloodlust blue balls for both sides, it should at least be done in a way. It should be done by the people, for the people. and not in a bloody revolution type sense, because that can become utter chaos. But in a way that's controlled and done by the rule of law, whereby these institutions that we have, such as the judiciary system, actually become reconstituted as a real judiciary system that upholds the rule of law, irrespective of money and status and power. You know? And I just think we're setting up a scenario to where they will give us a pretense, a facsimile of that, while not giving us the reality of that. That's what I see kind of culminating there. And then, if Trump goes ham on it, on on arresting the libs, on the lock her up, um, you're going to create a scenario where it's like, what happened? Where is the Democrat Party after that? Like, is there a Democrat Party after that? You know, what force, right? And maybe that's what the left wants and what the left needs, because like I said before, the Democrat Party the Democrat establishment are the ones neutralizing their own left wing. You know? um, so maybe that's ultimately in the long term a good thing. But seeing the dominoes fall into place, the arrest of Trump, if they go through with it, I think it's more likely than not that they will, because they just can't seem to help themselves. They really can't. They just can't seem to help themselves. It's going to be the greatest show on earth, man. Look at the fireworks that are going. Okay, and I have a message for the right as well, because Trump has started calling for protests. Okay, now I more so like what Cliff High is saying about that. He appeared on somebody's podcast. This guy named Jean Claude. I think he's a crypto guy or something. I didn't know much about him, but a friend of mine sent it to me, so I watched the interview and it was a good one. Um, he is saying that um, what he predicts, and he's got like this really kind of complex AI program that he uses to make his predictions. He's like a techno shaman, you might say. He tends to be quite accurate. That's why I put his hyperinflation thing up, because I want people to be warned. I mean, this guy tends to be right about especially financial stuff. And so if he's predicting hyperinflation this year, that's something that we should all be thinking about, preparing for. Gold and silver, I guess. Maybe cryptos. Who knows? I don't know. I don't. Cryptos are something that is not my bailiwick. Okay. But what Cliff High is saying is that he envisions it being like the Canadian truckers protest, like basically a labor strike, you know. And a general labor strike, I think, is well in order. And for my money, I would love to see the left and the right both get on board with a general labor strike, until we get justice for what happened in Ohio, with the chemical spilling, until we get justice in terms of geoengineering and how that's impacting climate and how that's impacting our health as humans, including my own. And it's like I'm derailing myself again. I'm going to digress again, but no. Let me reel it back in. Um, what the right should do something more than like that, than something that could easily become another January 6th scenario. Because what we can do a deeper dive, a deeper unpack of what happened January 6th um, at another time. But all evidence points to um, an a protest that became a false flag. An organic protest that became an inorganic false flag. Or a more interesting theory that I've heard more recently is that it was actually meant to be a false flag that they turned into a protest, that they also turned into a big protest. So anyway, I'm getting into the weeds there, and I don't wish to do that. But what I'm saying is, it's not about picket signs. It's not about demonstrations. It's about do something that has the potential to actually disrupt the agenda that's being exacted against us. And I, of course, part of the reason why I network with the left and the right at all times is that I've always been very aware that the revolutionary energy can come from either side. Some people don't believe that, but I think it's manifestly apparent. It's manifestly apparent that MAGA populism is the most revolutionary political force of our time, of our current time, because the left just can't seem to get it together. I mean, like y'all can't take over your own party, then what are you going to do if you can't take over your own party, and if you don't have the balls to um, disassociate from the Democrat Party and create a real leftist party? How are you ever going to have a real left in America? Some of the realest leftist friends that of mine they've been saying for like a decade or more, there's no real left in America anymore. It's hard to argue with it. Hard to argue that that's not the case. You know, especially when it's insider, leftist, real tried and true leftists saying it. Now, there is some leftism that excites me when they talk about class first leftism. I am now starting to see a resurgence of the anti war left. Finally, 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 finally. Vis-a-vis the Democratic Socialists and how they've been standing up against AOC, who is obviously just a plain old Democrat who pretended to be a socialist um, to get elected. So I'm very excited to see an anti-war left, and we have an anti-war right now. A very robust anti-war right. So if we get an anti-war left and an anti-war right together, like what happened in DC last month, and make it a real thing, we might actually make some substantial progress in terms of the imperialist warfare agenda, the endless warfare agenda, the profit-driven warfare agenda. We might actually be able to do something there. But yeah, so what I would say to the right is don't just go ham and be crazy, and they're gonna put out their agents too, like that Patriot Front group is AstroTurf. Those people are all feds. They're gonna put those people out to try to gin up the rest of MAGA. You know, um, but you don't want to create the optics like what was created January 6th, where you have this big massive MAGA who were mainly just there for a protest. And then they were very easily able to manipulate the imagery there. And they had their agent provocateurs there, and they had the Azovs there, and they had Antifas there. And to be further in the provocation, right? And then bring as many of the MAGA people into it as they could bring into it in terms of the destructive elements of it, like breaking the windows and that kind of thing. The people who went on a tour of the Capitol, come on, like that's not criminal behavior. And we see now from the video footage, and there's more footage to that effect that hasn't been broadcast on network television yet, about police officers actually giving tours and letting people in and inviting people in. Because a lot of them were in on the false flag. Were in on the psyop, I should say. It wasn't really. There are hoaxes, there are false flags, and there are just psyops. And sometimes those things are all one thing, and sometimes it's important to distinguish. We'll get into that at another time. But do something that's disruptive, something like the trucker strike, something like a general strike. Do something that actually has the potential to to disrupt the agenda, and I would like it to be done in such a way where um, leftists who are awake to the what's happening feel invited to participate. Maybe not at first, but if such a general strike movement starts to happen, then we need to be actively trying to bring leftists who are into labor organizing, leftists who are into protecting the climate, leftists who are into reversing some of this damage that's being done through, especially the geoengineering, because that's like the worst part of climate, man-made climate change at this point, is the geoengineering. If we can get that all to come off, then then we're looking at something real. We're looking at real revolutionary potential in the United States of America, such as I've never seen in my lifetime, if we can pull that off. So, the Trump arrest, it's a stupid idea from the outset, especially from the perspective of the people who are doing it, because it's going to be utter self sabotage, and with nothing redeeming about it from that perspective, from a leftist perspective. But it's also going to be the greatest show on earth. And if Cliff High is right, I trust Cliff High's opinion about the hyperinflation scenario that's coming more so than I trust his opinion about. He sees it going. He's predicting that it's going to go the general strike direction, not the January 6th psychological operation, ready made protest type direction. That's what he's predicting. Um, I'm like I said, I'm less confident about that prediction. I mean, because but I think it could happen. I think it could actually happen. And what for my money, that's the scenario I would most like to see, rather than getting into the weeds of this bloodless blue balls nonsense. Let's get into the direction of a general strike. Let's get into the direction of collective, not even collective bargaining, but collective action. Collective action that brings the left and the right together to create a movement that is scaled, a people's movement that is scaled beyond anything we've ever seen. And I even think it could be bigger than the 60s and 70s. Because it's more inclusive. Um, in a certain regard. So it's because it's not so myopically identitarian. Like we're dealing with economic oppression on a very wide scale that's impacting the middle class. So when you have the middle class in that scenario of economic oppression along with the working and poor classes, you really get something done. It's an opportunity that I would like to see us not squander. But that's the best possible scenario of what we the people can do with the Trump arrest. So those are my thoughts on that. Much love to all of you. Sorry this went way longer than I expected. I hope it was entertaining. I went on a lot of tangents. I hope they were entertaining tangents. And once again, sorry for the shitty quality of the video. I am setting up all my Linux apps. I've had to figure out which apps I want to use for Linux because I've used Linux off and on, but never to a serious level of like switching over to Linux, which is pretty much where I am now because I'm just so sick of Windows. And Mac, I'm okay with Mac, but I don't currently have a Mac right now, and maybe I want one, maybe I don't. I don't know. I really want to see what Linux, how I feel about Linux. And then if I like Linux, I'll stay with Linux. And if I still feel like a Mac would be better suited to my needs, then I'll go get a Mac. Okay? That's pretty much what it is. But anyway, much love to you guys. Thanks for subscribing. Share this with people, or share something, one of my articles that the people that you know will like. Help me get more of an audience because I'm going to do some really good stuff on this platform. So anyway, take care. Bye.